So, good morning classmates, good morning ma'am. So today we talk about policy formulations. So policy formulations, it refers to the development of the specific policy options within the government when the range of possible choices is narrowed by including impossible ones and efforts are made by the various actors to have their favor solutions rank highly among the remaining few. In a public administrations, policy formulations involve the process of identifying and tracking a set of policy alternatives to address a problem and narrows down to alternative arrives at the final policy decisions. So, 8 stages of policy formulations. Number 1 is problem identifications. Number 2 is agenda building. Number 3 is policy formulations. Number 4 is policy adoptions. Number 5 is budgeting. And number 6 is implementations. And number 7 is policy evaluations. And the last is the policy successions. So number 1 is problem identifications. So the most important things in the problems identifications. Number 1 is setting clear definitions, defining clearly what the problem is, and the second is perceptions, defined as registering or receiving an event. Number 2 is agenda building. Agenda building is the stage where after identifying an issues, the issues is discussed and seriously considered among policymakers. 3 streams that arise in agenda building. Number 1 is political stream. Includes public opinions, research, elections, swings in public mood. Number 2 is problem stream. Problem identification stage, emergencies. And number 3 is policy stream. Consists of when both policymakers and members of a community voice their proposals. Next is the policy formulations. So policy formulation is the stage where remedies for the problems are formulated and determined, and also consider policy analysis limits to policy formulations, and 3 have to be affordable, available, and acceptable. And policy formulations also contains what tools and goals can be used. Tools include documents, roles, rights, powers, impacts, and provisions of powers. Goals include security, liberty, efficiency, and equity, and welfare. Next is the policy adoption. Policy adoption is the stage when there is an emergency, an acceptance of proposals. Possible adopters can be include Congress, the President, courts, and bureaucracy. An adoption can occur in one or four ways. Legislations bill being passed, executive orders, and agreements. Number 3 is agencies can adopt them via regulates. Number 4 is judicial action. Next is the budgeting, where is that determine how funds will be allocated within the proposed by policy. Budget committees set targets for expenditures and revenues by passing a budget resolutions. Authorization committees reauthorize or authorize programs, set max that can be spent. Appropriations committees sets final budget and what will be spent. And the last is implementations. A legal obligations to award benefits to those who meet the established criteria. So the other stages will be discussed by the next reporter. Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. My topic is all about policy formulation. What is function of policy formulation? Policy formulation is the function of the top-level manager. They are the ones responsible for developing the policies and goals for the organization. Halimbawa po na may isa po kayong organization tulad ng sa business o kaya sa samahan nyo sa kahit anong trabaho, kailangan ang pinaka humahawak ng organization nyo ay manager kasi sila ang responsible na mapadevelop ang inyong business o kaya mga policies o yung goals ng inyong business para maging successful at mas umangat pa. What are steps in policy formulation? Most policy models generally include the following stages. Number 1, identify the issue to address by the proposed policy. Dito po sa number 1, ay alamin nyo po muna kung ano yung issue ng isasubmit o ipapropose nyong policy o gagawin nyo. Number 2, placement on the agenda. Dito naman po nakatala yung mga kailan o saan gaganapin ang inyong gagawing policy. Formulation of the policy. Ito naman po ay nakakonekta tulad ng implementation of the policy. Bago isagawa, kailangan bago i-implement ang policy, kailangan pag-aralan muna. 5, evaluation of the policy. Bago po ipasa ang policy, kailangan usisyain, alamin kung ano ang magandang gawin ay magandang kahinatnan o kalabasan ng inyong polisiya. Who are the stakeholders in policy formulation? Key stakeholders in various example listed include community members, participants, investigators, researchers, advisory board members, and clinicians. Yun ang mga nabanggit ko po na tulad ng community members, participants, investigators, researchers, advisory board members, and clinicians. Sila pa yung mga stakeholders ng policy formulation. What is policy formulation and policy implementation? Public policy formation is the study, creation, and implementation of laws, regulations, finding priorities, or other actions on a specific public issue by a local, state, or federal government. Dito po sa policy formulation, inaalam nila dito yung mga public issue ng local o yung kanilang gobyerno at kanilang hahanapan ng solution at to study a creation and implementation of laws of regulations.
Policy implementation involves all of activities designed to carry out the policy enacted by the legislative branch. These activities include the creation of new organizations, department, agency, bureaus, or the assignment of new responsibilities to the existing organization. It forms a bridge that allows the objectives of the public policy to be achieved as outcomes of government activities. Elements of implementation. 1. Clarity of goals. 2. Capacity of permanent executive. 3. Mechanism of coordination. And last 4. Political and judicial support. Next is perspective on implementation. 1. Implementation as evolution. 2. Implementation as a word of mechanism. 3. Implementation as a politics. For successful implementation. 1. The policy contains ambiguous directive in the structure of the implementation process. 2. Leaders of the implementation agency possess substantial managerial and political skill and professional knowledge. 3. The policy is activity supported by organized constituency groups, legislature, and judicial. Approaches to policy implementation. 1. Top-down model. Ideal implementation is product of the army-like organization with clear lines of authority. Norms would be enforced, objectives are provided. People are expected to do what they are told. Bottom-up model. It underlines the importance of initiatives coming from the bottom leading to effective implementation. Number 3. Policy action model. It is a behavior model viewing implementation as an action by actors which is constrained by the world outside their organization. Problem in policy implementation. Supporting services. Lack of staff, financial and infrastructural support, shortage of time, gigantic targets. Pressure on implementers, political pressure, citizen not cooperative, vested interest. Implementation inclination, lack of will, lack of initiative, corruption, lack of motivation, and lack of accountability. Effective policy implementation mechanism. It would include political strategies, administrative strategies, and educational strategies. That's all, guys. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to present to you of our topic, policy control. But for now, let's learn what is the meaning of policy control. Policy control. Policy control is a very generic term, and in network, there are many different policies that can be implemented. For example, policies related of security, mobility, use of access, technologies, and etc. From bureaucracy to modern public administration, nowadays, there are a lot of challenges for management in public administration. The article presents controlling as a modern instrument for public sector. Attention is paid especially to its application in public organizations. Sabi nga dito, mula daw sa bureaucracy hanggang sa modernong pampublikong administrasyon, sa panahon ngayon, maraming hamon para sa pamamahala sa pampublikong administrasyon. Ito daw ay nagpapakita ng pagkontrol bilang isang modernong instrumento para sa pampublikong sektor. Binibigyang pansin lalo na ang aplikasyon nito sa mga pampublikong organisasyon. Controlling is a system of management which uses information to control all of the processes in organizations, the anticipation of differences between actual and planned outcomes as well as implementation of actions before such differences arise are typical function of controlling. Sabi dito, ang pagkontrol daw ay isang sistema ng pamamahala na gumagamit ng impormasyon upang kontrolin ang lahat ng mga proseso sa organisasyon. Ang pag-asam ng mga pagkakaiba sa pagitan ng aktwal at nakaplanong mga resulta, pati na rin ang pagpapatupad ng mga aksyon bago lumitaw. Gayong mga pagkakaiba ay mga tipikal na tungkulin ng pagkontrol. And if we talk about controlling, we must think about two conditions. Ang batayan daw para sa paggamit ng pagkontrol sa pampublikong organisasyon ay kinakailangan ng pamamahala ng mga proseso at pagsuporta sa sistema ng impormasyon. Public administration uses a lot of different information, such as information for management, information supporting public service, information for citizens, and etc.